All right, everyone. Today I want to talk about leadership development practices. Okay, and here's the truth when it comes to leadership development practices. Leadership does not develop by accident. You do not develop your leadership by accident. People do not become strong leaders just because they have talent, ambition, or definitely a title, right? And anyone that knows me or been around me know that I just believe positional leadership is the lowest form of leadership because people only listen and follow you and do what you tell them to do because of your position, not because of you as the person, but in the position just because of the position. But anyway, real leadership development takes place when there's intentional practice. Now, those who again been around me long enough know that I have 3XP leadership, right? My leadership methodology that I teach uh, people how to become stronger leaders when you combine purpose, people, and process, and you align that into a meaningful to produce meaningful performance, right? So when we talk about leadership development practices, what we're really talking about is the habits, the disciplines, the experience that a person needs to grow into to become a more effective and more aware and more impactful leader, right? So here are some tenets or attributes or characteristics of things that you can do to help with your leadership development practices, right? The very first one is self-reflection, right? So you cannot grow as a leader without taking time to honestly evaluate how you think, how you lead, how you communicate, and how you affect other people, right? It's evaluating honestly how you think, right? So don't sit there, and I always let leaders know, stop lying to yourself when it comes to your self evaluation. You know how you are, right? This is when that self reflection is very important. The self reflection is going to help you identify your strengths if you're honest with yourself, but it's also going to help you confront those blind spots that you have, those weak habits, those poor assumptions, or those missed opportunities that you have. Trust me, it's not going to feel good sometimes. Maybe if you're not used to self-reflecting, it's not going to feel good in the beginning, but eventually it gets better, right? So your leadership development begins with the willingness to look inside before you're trying to lead somebody outside, right? Um, Now, like through my 3XP leadership, reflection helps leaders reconnect with your purpose and how you're engaging with people and determine whether your process are producing the performance you want, right? So the second important process in leadership development practice is continuous learning. I just recently had a conversation about the doctoral degrees and people out here with doctoral degrees and getting doctoral degrees like some of you out there doing right now. And I always say it's not when you receive the degree, when you get conferred and you receive the degree, that's just the start of it, right? You still must continuously learn. Okay. Because strong leaders, they don't assume they already know enough. You stay teachable, read, observe, listen, ask questions, remain open to growth, research more. Not because you've been told to research on your own. It requires intellectual discipline for your leadership development, right? It requires you to study communication, to study decision making, to study conflict resolution, to study emotional intelligence and organizational behavior. So just because you're sitting there and you have that DR, that doesn't necessarily mean that you know everything there is to know. You must continue to actually, like we talked about previously before, in action research. You must continue to research, right? So, and go beyond formal learning. Leaders, strong, effective leaders, they grow from failure, feedback, and experience, right? Every challenge can teach you something if you're willing to learn from it. A third major practice would be to seek coaching or feedback. Now, I'm not, I'm giving you my perspective on that, okay? Because I know there's a lot of people out here calling themselves coaches. I'm a coach. I'm a coach. I'm a coach. I'm a coach. Not everybody's a coach, right? Or I should say it like this: not everybody's a good coach. Okay, you might have went through something, can experience something, move past it on your own, but that does not mean you know how to coach somebody else. Okay. Or if you are, seeking certain development practices, then you go find somebody that can help coach you through that process, right? Now and it shouldn't be your best friend. It shouldn't be unless they are credible, right? But that coach is going to be somebody that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, right? It's going to show you what you need to see, not what you want to see. So keep that in mind. Um, if you want that growth, it's all about that. It's all it's all about growing. It's all about getting better and recognizing your areas of weakness that need to be that need to be brought forth. Right now, feedback. Feedback is feedback, and I know feedback is being thrown out there right now. And do not get me wrong when I say this. It can be valuable. It's not always valuable. It can be valuable. It depends on where the feedback is coming from. Okay, and that's one thing I look at when I look at feedback. I look at it where it's coming from because most people that give feedback don't know how to give unobjective feedback. They give feedback based on their biases. They give feedback based on what they would have wanted to do, not what it is that the leader should have, possibly could have done. But well, if I was in that position, this is what I would have done. And I always let people know you don't know exactly what you're going to do unless you're in that position, right? So that's one of the things when it comes to feedback that I look at. It's like, okay, are you giving me unobjectable feedback? Or do you have your biases included? And when I look at feedback, a lot of times feedback have a lot of bias in it. And so when I look at feedback, and when people want to give me feedback, I look at it and say, hey, okay, are you giving me feedback based on from an outside view looking in? Then great. But if you're giving me feedback based on the fact that, well, I didn't like the fact that you did this or you said this because I don't like people talking about me talking like that, or talking with me or to me like that, some of the things like that. Okay, that's biased feedback. I'm not saying it's always bad, but I'm just like getting understanding feedback. But it can be a valuable tool in leadership development, right? It can actually help you understand how people actually experience your leadership. So, and then get coaching actually helps you go from awareness to action. So don't be threatened by the feedback, right? Or some of us use it to get better. Some of us use it just whatever. It is what it is, right? But it's especially important because it's a dimension of the of people, the people dimension with 3HP leadership, because leadership is never only about what you intended, and also about what others experience. Okay. Another important practice would be intentional relationship building. Uh, so understanding that leadership is not developed in isolation, right? It's developed through interaction with other people. Okay. So what do I mean by that? I mean mentoring, collaboration, networking, team leadership, service, right? It's relationships help you develop and build, trust, communication, influence, and the ability to manage conflict. There's the big C word, conflict, because a lot of people don't know how to manage conflict. Some people do know how to manage conflict, but they don't know how to manage it effectively, right? So if you're not a person that cannot build strong relationships, then you're going to struggle to lead effectively. Okay, no matter how smart or talented you are. All right. Um, another key in leadership development practices is applying leadership in real situations. Right, and this is when the rubber hits the road and meets the road, right? Because you're going to learn all about leadership, these theories, all these theories thrown out here. But until you put these theories into action, then you don't know how that's going to affect your leadership environment, right? Effective and sustainable leaders, they develop, by decision making, by solving problems, by managing change, by handling pressure, and leading people through real challenges. Okay, like I say, theories are theories until they're put into action, so it can be proven. And that's one of the things that I've done when it comes to 3SP leadership is everything that I talk about, everything that I do is not theory. It is actual developed through action. And when I'm talking about this part, right, and developing and applying it in real situations, then that is the process side of 3SP leadership. Okay. Um, Another key practice is discipline and consistency. So one of the mistakes people make is treating leadership development like it's a one-time event, right? They'll attend a workshop, they'll read a book, or they'll complete a training and say, okay, I'm good, I'm better, I'm this. No, it's what you do with that information that you learn from that workshop, from that book, or that training, right? And then putting that into action and using some action research to figure out, okay, does this work for me? And if it does, how does it work for me, right? So understand that leadership development is a continuous process. You're required to repeat it. It's practice. You got to practice it, right? It's your consistent behavior. It's consistency in your value. It's consistency in your effort. You're not developed by only big moments. Okay, you get better in your leadership, and you're developed in the repeated small decisions that shape your character, your credibility, or your confidence over time. And this is something that I work to get leaders to understand. It's not the big moments. Oh, I developed this program, or I revamped the department, or I did this, right? No, it's actually the smaller things, right? That's over time. That's going to determine that, right? So that that being said, leadership development must include a purpose alignment. Okay, effective, sustainable leaders who develop skills without purpose, they just become impressive, but not impactful. So your purpose is going to give you leadership direction, going to keep you growing and connected to your mission, your values, and your service. Um, know that when leaders know why they lead, they become more focused. So if you know why you lead, you become more resilient, you become more focused, you become more intentional. So when you think about leadership practices, or think beyond training sessions, think beyond titles, right? Think and what you think about self-reflection, think about continuous learning, think about feedback, right? Constructive feedback. Think about in the right feedback. Think about relationships, the rightness, right? Not building it because you want to get promoted, not building it because, oh, I just want them to like me. No, think about relationships. Think about real world application in your leadership environment. Think about discipline. And then think about purpose alignment. When you do that, that's going to shape you to become a stronger leader, right? Um, and through my 3XP leadership, I ensure that leadership development practices is not just about becoming knowledgeable, it's about becoming more aligned with your purpose. So it's about strengthening, purpose, strengthening, uh, um, you know, your purpose and your leadership person, maybe for your organization and for you, right? It's about improving how to engage with people, how to refine your processes, how to stay committed to having a stronger performance, right? To position yourself to lead with greater impact. So at the end of the day, leadership development is a choice. It is a choice to grow on purpose, to lead with intention, and to become the kind of leader who does not just hold a position, but actually makes a difference.